everybody, and welcome to the Paddock Pass podcast, or P3, as we like to call it. Or, now that I think about it, math has never been my strong suit. What is it? Is it the 2 is squared? Is it the little 3? Is that cubed?
Cubed
All right,
indeed.
So technically, it could be P cubed. I don't know. I still think P3 sounds better.
I think P3 sounds better as well.
All right. So, if you're just joining us for the first time and you haven't been here for any of our watch-alongs or anything, my name is Jason.
I'm Nate.
And we've been friends for a very long time, going way back to primary or elementary school, as they used to call it back in the day. And I have been a motorsports fan many, many years, but recently, as of about 3 years ago, is when I finally started seriously watching Formula One, and got into sim racing and things like that. And Nate here, I've kind of dragged him along for the ride.
It was kicking and screaming at first, but I eventually came around.
So we're gonna kind of, now that we're in the middle of the summer break, well, not the middle, we're in the beginning of the summer break. There's not a whole lot going on race-wise in Formula One, but that doesn't mean the news has stopped. So
Indeed not.
Yeah, if you haven't been following up on it, then we're going to try to catch you up on some of the bigger stories that have been going on. So rolling right into it, as of yesterday morning, it was announced. Now, this is not necessarily Formula One, but it does tie in with the FIA, which is the governing body that handles the rules and everything for Formula One. They have announced that the 2026 FIA World Endurance Championship campaign will conclude with a pair of European races in Spain and Italy, after ongoing regional developments affecting freight and travel arrangements obligated the cancellation of planned events in Qatar and Bahrain. So basically what this means is the final 2 races for the WIC Championship, they were going to be taking place in Qatar and Bahrain, and due to the ongoing troubles currently happening in the Middle East, those aren't going to be happening now. So they're going to be replacing those final 2 races in Barcelona, Catalunya, and the Autodromo Nacional in Monza.
So that's Kimmy's hometown, right?
No, I think Kimmy's he's from Bologna, which is near Imola. That's the other Italian track. Monza is the one that's actually coming up on the Formula One calendar.
Oh, you said Catalonia.
Yeah, Barcelona, Catalunya. That's the one in Spain.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's wild. You mentioned like the global events with both the the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf have hazardous navigational conditions currently. We talked about this a little bit last time. Maybe it was off stream, but you were telling me about how long it takes them to ship the cars and all the the booths that go with them. He said it was like 3 months. So absolutely the right call.
I know when they ship from, like, for instance, when they ship from, I think it's, if I remember correctly, one of the videos I watched with Formula One and the logistics of it and everything, it's like all of the team kits, the motorhomes and all of their tools and equipment and everything, once they finish, I think, the Chinese Grand Prix, they then load those onto a container ship and they're sent to North America. And those are the same ones that they use over here for, like, Canada, Miami, Mexico City, Brazil, Las Vegas. So it's months that it takes them to ship these things around the world. And with all of the main waterways in the Middle East undergoing some issues at the moment, I don't think they want to risk that.
No, absolutely. And you have no idea, at this point, whether or not they'll have, navigability in those, the crucial straits that the ships have to transit. Or really, at this point, what the conditions of those tracks are in. I think both Qatar and Bahrain have, received some munitions from Iran.
Especially Qatar, because if I remember correctly, the U.S. military base in Qatar is not far from the racetrack.
No, it's very close. Very close. So Doha, I think the track is in Doha proper, if I'm not mistaken, and it's pretty close.
So the big question with this is, since they have gone and done this and already rescheduled the races for the WIC Championship, how long before they pull the trigger? That was not intended to be a pun. How long before they decide on what to do in Formula One? Because in December, I'm not sure if it's in late November and December or if it's just in December, but the final 2 races in the Formula One season are supposed to take place in Qatar and then Abu Dhabi. And
I'd anticipate on those being rescheduled as well.
They're already talking about potentially moving Abu Dhabi, the championship, the final race of the season, to Imola. But therein is also a problem, because even though Imola in Italy is southern in Europe, it's still, I mean, you and I, we checked on this off camera a couple of days ago after the race, and I'm pretty sure you said something along the lines of, in Imola in December, it's somewhere around like 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and it pretty much rains 6 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah, it'd be rough. It would be rough racing, right? I think the drivers have to deal with cold. I would assume they couldn't, right? I think that they're really pretty finely tuned, and that big of a swing in the environment would be pretty detrimental to the way the engines work. There's certainly the battery is kind of a big unknown. How it'll endure the cold like that. It may not be cold enough to affect it, but then certainly, I would also say, like, the drivers, 40 degrees and wet is a pretty chilly day.
Yeah, especially in an open cockpit and a heavy Nomex suit.
Yeah, at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it's stiff wind. It's going to be cold. I know they get a lot of warmth from the engine. And I mean, these guys, they're professional athletes, right? So I'm sure there have been Formula One races historically and in conditions like that. Be interesting to see if they do it. I would almost think they, if the weather, really becomes a concern, looking at Miami or Vegas again, because those are, 2 tracks they have where the temperature at that time of year is I think a little more favorable.
I could potentially see, while it's not really so much of a fan favorite, at least in Europe, I could potentially see Miami because it's a purpose-built racetrack. I think it would be hard to do something in Vegas because it's a street course. It's literally built on the Las Vegas Strip, so you'd have to shut down the entire city for an additional month just to rebuild that racetrack for the race.
It's Vegas in December. I mean, is it, if you don't live there, like, how many people? It's not really peak tourist season in Las Vegas. It's getting close to Christmas. I think people are looking to go home, or travel to see family.
So,
but those are options. There's maybe Monza again. That's on the coast in Monaco. Be interested to see. Like, we should we'll check on the weather there. But I think kind of anywhere they go, December's really pushing it. If you're not really looking hard at Miami.
All right. Well, sort of switching gears, but keeping in the same vein. It was also announced this week that, like I mentioned earlier in the season, the Saudi Arabian and the Bahrain Grand Prix were canceled. And it has now been announced as of, I believe it was on Sunday during the Hungarian Grand Prix, they announced that the Bahrain Grand Prix will actually be taking place in October in Malaysia, which is going to take place in between the Azerbaijan and Singapore Grand Prix. So they were going to have a week off in between those 2 Grand Prix, and now they're going to do the Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia, which has not raced a Formula One race since 2017.
Oh, it'd be interesting to see, right? So what kind of condition is that track in? Is that another one where they kind of close off public streets to race the track on? Is it a dedicated
it's a
track?
purpose-built track.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know what they race there year round, for them to maintain that track.
Well,
so it's got to be.
It's got to still be. Formula One has certain conditions that you have to meet to even be considered. So it must already be up to standard, or they never would have. And apparently, as part of this deal, the organizers of the Bahrain Grand Prix are completely covering the cost of holding it in Malaysia. The Malaysian, the local government that controls it and everything, apparently the only thing they're not going to be profiting from this race at all. They're just looking on tourist revenue and everything to bring money into the local economy and all that. But they aren't benefiting at all from the Grand Prix. All the proceeds from the race are going to be going to the organizers of the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. I don't know how long they've held races in kind of Qatar, Dubai, and
it's only been over the last, it's not even been a full decade.
Yeah, so I don't have the history to go back and say how long the season was previously, or what tracks were cut to enable those races. So I don't know. There's the
Formula One calendar used to be shorter. I think they used to only do like 17, 18 races in a season, and now they do 24.
Well, interesting would be to see if they can't have those races at all, what that does to the championship.
That's the big question.
Puts Antonelli further ahead.
That when they first announced that they were going to be canceling Jeddah and Bahrain, everybody was like, "Okay, now we have 22 races. How is this going to affect the drivers and constructors championship? Because there's 2 fewer races in the season and less time to close that gap." So there's that.
Yeah, it's certainly adds a layer of complexity to it, right? I know. If I saw a couple of reels on Instagram this week that were, saying that if Lewis Hamilton or maybe it was Lando, if Lando won every race and Kimi Antonelli still came in second every race for the remainder of the season, Antonelli would still win the championship by 1 point or something like that.
Lando would have to win every race and have a couple of DNFs from Kimi to have a shot at it.
Yeah, so it if you're trying to game out the championship and who would have to do what to kind of dethrone Antonelli, then those the length of the season is going to really matter.
Let's be honest now too. I mean, if you really want to talk about Lando's championships of repeating his driver's championship, we have to remember he's already on his 4th power unit. So he's already exceeded, he's on his 5th. He's already exceeded his total allocation for the year, which is why he took a 10-place grid penalty in Spa. So that
have Mercedes.
Yeah. And that power unit that Lando is currently on needs to last him the entire remainder of the season, which, let's be honest, it's not going to. He's going to take more penalties, which means more likely those are races that he is not going to podium on.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, right? But I think if you look at there's really 4 teams, I think that are I expect 3 out of these 4 teams to be on the podium every week. And that, it's McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I had a senior moment there. Red Bull has struggled all season. Mm-hmm. They don't have the pace. The car isn't built for their driver. Their number 1 driver, right? So,
which is ironic because that's what has been the problem for years. Everybody kept saying the second seat was cursed because they built the car around Max and nobody else can drive it, and that's why we've gone through Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda and Sergio Perez, and nobody can be Max's teammate because the car is built for him. And now look at the boat they're in. Yeah,
and so right, so I think. He's been pretty vocal about it, right? He's struggling this season. to handle the car. I think Mercedes has been dominant, right? But I think that their advantage is eroding over the course of the season, right? Antonelli's the wild card there, but in comparison to, I think, McLaren, which has been solid and is improving, and Ferrari, which is consistently improving, like every week. I think the last 2 races we've had a Ferrari on the podium.
Yeah.
So,
well, except for Hungary, they missed it.
That's true. Yeah, you're 100% right. But still we're a threat, a big threat to the podium. So it'll be interesting to see, how if there's any changes in the second half of the season, right? Like if Mercedes is able to kind of hang on to their advantage and keep their car kind of as far ahead of the rest of the field as they have, because I think they've had a real power advantage.
All right.
Or if the other teams are catching up. I think Ferrari's supposed to debut a new power unit, right?
Yeah, they're definitely going to. We're going to get into that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll get there.
Okay. Yeah, I know. But for as that comes into it, there's a lot of, I think, mental math or a lot more gameism that's we're going to see play out over the rest of this season, especially if they change the length of the season or where the weather of where they're having those replacement races, if they keep the season the same length.
Okay. All right. Well, we can table this one for now, and we'll continue to move on. All right, so moving along to driver negotiations, we've got a couple of them to talk about here. First and foremost, the one on everybody's mind is going to be Max Verstappen. And apparently, according to some recent news articles, Red Bull has made their final, apparently last-ditch effort offer to Max. They apparently, now, as far as figures go, it's mostly people guesstimating because the teams don't really disclose how much the drivers' salaries are. There's some rumors out there and everything, and I've heard in the past that Max gets somewhere around 60 million. I don't know.
So I saw a Instagram, again, my number one source of F1 news being Instagram. And it had a picture of all the drivers and their salaries.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
They pegged Max at 70.
But I don't know if that's over the course of the life of the contract or per year is the thing.
Well, I mean, some of the guys are like 1 million. Yeah. So I would have to think that that's yearly.
Yeah. It just sounds like 60 million a year. Just sounds crazy.
The amount of money that's in F1 is beyond, and that's I guess the thing that people, you could be right? It could be 70 million over 10 years, which is, I think, far more reasonable.
And when you say it like that, though, it almost sounds like they're underpaying them given everything that they do.
So I think that your salary as a professional athlete is tied to the amount of money you bring to, the league, right? Like LeBron James, people go to see him play. So he can command a big salary, right? Like people buy his shirts, the team gets a cut of that, the league gets a cut of that. So, people come and they come to see Max Verstappen race. They come to see Lewis Hamilton race, So it's not necessarily surprising to me that they get, that they're well compensated. I mean, they live in Monaco. So if you look up what it takes to be a resident of Monaco, not being a citizen of, so for me, for you and me to move to Monaco, you have to maintain a $5 million balance in a bank in Monaco.
Yeah,
that's not, I have $5 million, I can move to Monaco and then live off that $5 million.
No.
That's a solid balance you have to maintain.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm certain they're well compensated. So,
well, the rumor that I'm hearing, that they're reporting is that The figure on a couple of these sites that I've said is Max's current contract is for 65 million. Now, I've heard 60 in the past, you mentioned 70, so maybe they're just meeting halfway and saying 65. Well, apparently, Red Bull has offered an undisclosed increase in his salary, but for 2 more years, they want to extend his contract from 2027 to 2029 for an additional amount of money, but they want to remove his exit clause. Now, if I remember, I believe the exit clause that Max currently has is that he could actually exercise it right now, if I believe, because I'm pretty sure he's met the criteria, which is the team has to provide him with a car that's good enough that he can be at least P3 in the driver's standings by the summer break, and if he doesn't do that, then he's allowed to leave the team and get out of his contract early. He hasn't exercised it yet, but Red Bull wants to offer him more money and take that out of the contract.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting clause. I know that's come up. I know the summer break was the summer break here was kind of the stop or go. Or the window for him is what I'm trying to say. The window for him to maybe implement that. It is interesting. It's interesting that you would have that in a contract. Like that's a bizarre thing. You know, who else has little performance clauses in their contract? George Russell.
Yeah, I've heard rumors but George's clause is more of a performance clause to benefit Mercedes. From what I've heard, he had to be able to beat Kimi Antonelli or they could terminate his contract.
Yeah, another, like, I'm sure to George Russell at the time it sounded great, like no way. But man, so you're looking, I think, you set up a perfect storm for a lot of the F1 rumors that have been circulating for a couple weeks. So I think you're going to get to that here in a minute.
Well, the other, before we'll circle back to where I think what we're talking about here, but the other driver who has been in discussions in the news about contract negotiations is Carlos Sainz. Now, there's been rumors floating around for weeks that Audi has potentially been talking to Carlos, trying to lure him away from Williams. Carlos's contract with Williams is up this year. However, apparently Williams wants to secure him for at least another 2 more years, and from what it's being reported, they have potentially offered him 30 million, which I believe is in British pounds, not euros or dollars, obviously, but 30 million per year for the next 2 years to continue racing at Williams. Despite the fact that he just had probably one of the worst weekends I've ever seen him drive by ignoring like 8 blue flags and crashing into Oscar Piastri.
Well, so I agree. He said, Antonelli made some comments about him at Spa.
Yeah, there were some words.
It's been, he's had a rough go in that car, I think, right? So I don't think it's a driver talent issue, number one.
No, Carlos is a fantastic driver, but I think he has to remember he's not in a Ferrari.
Certainly not. So he has had a couple rough weeks, and I think that, 30 million over 2 years. He's not the oldest driver on the grid, is he?
I think he's the third oldest behind Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. So, man, that would be. It doesn't matter. In the next 2 years, even going to Audi, he's not going to be in contention for a championship. Like, it would take. They would really have to do some wizardry. To put him in the run for the drivers' championship.
Right now, right? As of this season, both Audi and Williams are struggling to even consistently make it into the top 10.
Top 10 is generous. And I mean, I understand they're doing some new things with the car, both of those teams this year, right? But I don't see it getting. I mean, maybe better. Maybe we're looking solidly top 10 next season.
Well, if you listen to James Vowles, every time he does an interview, it's always about, it's not about this season, it's about next season. Like, when are you going to worry about right now, James? Now's when you win.
Well, that's a really good point. But circling back to like my main point, if I'm Carlos Sainz, Audi's going to have to come to the table with more than $30 million to get me to go for a car that I'm not going to win a championship in, right? So that's it's a very I think a very solid offer by Williams to keep him there. And if I'm Carlos Sainz, that certainly affects my calculus.
Yeah, indeed. All right. So now, circling back to what we were talking about with Max, and then you were kind of alluding to Mercedes and George's potential performance clause. Also, that just came out in the news today, there was a couple of photos that have popped up online of what appears to be Max Verstappen and his girlfriend, Kelly Piquet, vacationing, having a nice little swim out in some warm waters with none other than Toto Wolff and his wife. So, of course, the rumor mill is swirling. Does this mean Max is going to Mercedes? Which I thought we had pretty much buried all that, because Toto has said in the past he's happy with his two drivers and George isn't going anywhere, but we also know you can only take what they say to the media at face value, because they're going to say one thing to the media and then do something completely. They're not going to tell you what they're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think Toto Wolff is full baloney, and that if Verstappen came calling, I think that he would leap at the chance to put that guy in one of his cars.
So
I think there's. Go ahead.
I did read. There was a statement from Toto. Now, there was no. I'm not sure when the timing of the statement is. I don't know if this is a response to the photos. It's kind of hard to believe, because I mean, he's on vacation. Why would he answer to those? But I did read a statement where he said, and this is going to be coming from him. It says, Toto Wolff expressed openness to the idea of pairing Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli at Mercedes in the future. Speaking to the media, Wolff remarked, "You have to give Kimi time to develop. Max is driving at his peak. He can do everything. The two respect each other. They're from different generations. But having both of them in one team is, of course, a completely different starting point." And then he goes on to say, "But it's not like I'm afraid of it. I had it worse with Rosberg and Hamilton. I'd probably handle it better today. We're not afraid of having the two of them in the same team at some point. But in the current situation, we're happy with the dynamic between Kimi and George. We've made great progress as a team. Adding another variable now wouldn't be right for our long-term development." Now, like I said, I don't know if this is in response to the current situation or if this is just going back on what he said in the last few weeks.
Well, it goes back to those exit clauses, I think, right? Like Max may exit even if he did, right? Let's say pull the trigger on his exit clause, it doesn't mean he has to stop racing for Red Bull the rest of this season, right?
No, it most likely wouldn't be until next season.
Right. And so, that's a little, like I said, disingenuous on the part of Toto Wolff to say like, well, we're not going to change anything right now. Well, even if you did change it right now, it wouldn't take effect, for until next season.
Yeah,
but honestly,
very rarely have there been drivers swaps like during a season.
Yeah, but I don't know that Max Verstappen would want to be on the same team with Kimi Antonelli. And then again, you're holding Antonelli back at that point, right? Like you really are. They thought they were doing that with George Russell, right? This is supposed to be a development year for him. He's just crushing it, right? Yeah. And so if I'm Kimi Antonelli, like I'm perfectly content to race George Russell, right? For the as my teammate. It's
But as the saying goes, steel sharpens steel.
oh yeah. There's some of that, but I don't think that they. I don't. I would be interested to get like Verstappen's thoughts. There's a guy who doesn't want to give up position on track when he gets an advantage by going off track. He never wants to give up position.
No.
And so far, Mercedes hasn't asked either of those guys, either Russell or Antonelli, to do that. But make no mistake, like they would be racing each other more than they're racing other teams.
Oh yeah.
And while I think it would make for great television, I'm not sure that either driver is really interested in that. Like if I'm Kimi Antonelli, I don't want to have to worry about the entire rest of the field and my teammate.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I think it's you look at it a lot like the Ferrari and McLaren have that going on right now. And if you look at like what happened in Hungary between Piastri and Lando, you don't think the temperature was high in the team meeting after that. Boy,
yeah, all you had to do was listen to Oscar Piastri's onboards when he was talking to the radio, because he basically told him to shut up and leave him alone. He was pissed.
Yeah. So you have and Piastri and Norris have we're duking it out for a championship very in the very distant past, or the very close past.
I could only wonder what Zach Brown must have been thinking, because he wasn't at Hungary. He was actually taking part in a GT3 Classic series. He was actually driving in like a Classic race, doing an older GT3 model car over in Europe. So he wasn't in Hungary. So, and I can only imagine he must have been thinking, oh, sure, the one race I don't go to, all hell breaks loose between my drivers.
And then you have like Leclerc and Hamilton. Like, what is going on with those guys?
I think Ferrari dropped the ball, honestly, with that by when Lewis got that penalty, that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Right now, Lewis is ahead in points and fighting for the Drivers' Championship. Ferrari, all they had to do was tell Charles to lift through a couple of corners so that he was just under 5 seconds behind Lewis, so that Lewis wouldn't have lost position. Because those 2 points that Lewis lost to Charles in Hungary, what if the championship comes down to 2 points?
Well, yeah, that's is that Ferrari dropping the ball, or is that two of the best drivers on the grid going at it? Yeah. If I'm like I said, I don't think any of those drivers want to be in that position, right?
No.
Everybody goes out there to win. And
you definitely don't want to put yourself in a position to fall under team orders where you're told to let your teammate through.
No, absolutely. Verstappen, I think, flat out won't do that.
Absolutely
he's used to having Checo or Isaac block for him, and I don't think Kimi Antonelli's the guy that's going to do that. And I think it would be while they're fantastic, both fantastic drivers, they're going to win a lot of races. It definitely cranks up Mercedes' odds at a drivers' champion and higher place in the constructors' championship. I don't think it's a team dynamic. And I mean, Toto Wolff says he's not worried about it. Well, you're not worried about it until you have it. And Max Verstappen is a guy you have to manage. Like, you think about all the headaches, between the media and his, you've brought up before his other racing that he does, is Mercedes going to stand for that? Are they going to let him risk himself?
That's the one reason why I've said for a while, I think it's all just rumor and conjecture, because I just don't see any other team allowing Max during a Formula One season to go off and race something on an off weekend, because every time you step in that car, you are putting yourself at risk. And when you and if you've got $70 million a year in your driver, you expect a return on that investment, not find out, he can't race the rest of the season because he broke his leg over in the Nürburgring in a GT3 car.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. But really, what I think this does is give Verstappen a lot more leverage with Red Bull. So that's exactly what I would be doing on vacation if I had a little bit of negotiating space, like the way he does. I would be going and talking. I'd be photographed with the competition. Let the rumor mill do what it will. But Red Bull, 65 million is not going to cut it.
So, keeping in line with Mercedes, we'll switch off the drivers here and go to some of the other reports. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about a duo. Now, if you aren't aware of what a duo is, I'm not going to be a whole lot of help because off the top of my head, I can't really tell you what it stands for. But basically what it is when you are in a new regulatory season like we are right now, everybody's trying out new engines for the first time that have all been built from scratch starting this year, you're going to have teams that aren't performing as well as some others. So in order to try to balance the scales a little bit, Formula One and the FIA will allow certain teams that they feel are underperforming additional upgrades to their engines so that they can bring it up to spec with the teams that are running at the front. Now, there was a lot of controversy earlier this season because it was deemed, even after Mercedes had won every Grand Prix by the time this duo information came out, it was still deemed that Red Bull had the most powerful engine. Now, we're talking engine, not overall power unit. That is the internal combustion engine and battery combined, which we all know Mercedes has the best power unit, but it was deemed that Red Bull has the most powerful engine. So they were basically the bench line, and everybody underneath them for the top running teams were given additional duo upgrades, including Mercedes. Now,
so a duo stands for additional development and upgrade opportunities.
Thank you.
So I Googled it, so save you the trouble. But you're exactly right. It's a engine and cost cap relief mechanism.
Right. Ferrari has already received one, and they're planning to do another one for the upcoming Grand Prix, which is going to be in Zandvoort in the Netherlands. And apparently it has now been reported that Mercedes is reportedly forcing a Monza engine upgrade, which is going to be their first duo upgrade. And they're doing it to try to, I guess, reduce some of the threat of Ferrari, kind of like evening the playing field. So Ferrari's going to have a duo upgrade by Zandvoort, and Mercedes will have one by Monza, which is the next race after Zandvoort.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens there. Those are I'm sure those are the two teams that are the main focus of this. But I'm interested to see what the rest of the field does with those with that opportunity as well. I think that I wouldn't say that Ferrari's lagging, right?
Honestly, I think Ferrari's biggest downfall so far this season that's cost them the most points has been strategy.
So I agree that they had the tire fiasco earlier in the season. They made some interesting calls, on the race course, but I don't think it looks to me, as a novice in this, that you build your car for one of two things. You build it for straight line speed or you build it for the corners, right? And Mercedes, I think, from what I see is built for straight line speeds. If the track has a long straight, you kiss Kimi Antonelli goodbye. Mm-hmm. But if it's twisty like the Hungaroring, and I say this with Antonelli on a podium there, I expected, Ferrari was dominant for a big portion of that race.
I mean, if you watched all of the free practices and everything, Ferrari had the top two, or they were in the top three spots, all three practice sessions, and then it fell apart in quali.
Yeah. So, as far as it's interesting, the purpose of it, I would think that teams that, like you had said, like teams that were really lagging, like I'd expect those Audis, maybe to break a little bit more into the top 10 after that. But I wouldn't. I'd be interested to see. I'll be interested to see what they bring. Mercedes. I mean, honestly, has some engine problems.
Big time with reliability. And
it seems to impact George Russell a lot more than Kimi Antonelli. But
interestingly, it doesn't seem to be affecting, with the exception of McLaren, it doesn't seem to be affecting the other Mercedes customer teams as badly. Williams have not had as many reliability issues, and neither has Alpine. So are they just not pushing the car as hard as Mercedes? I mean, we've heard before that Mercedes just gives them the engine. They don't, like Ferrari has customer teams. They also provide engineers that will show their customer teams how to get the most out of the Ferrari engine that they're getting. Mercedes doesn't do this. They give you the engine, they give you the gearbox. Here you go, figure it out.
Well, and then it is also not the same engine that's in their cars. Like it just can't be. The time differences that they're posting up, it's not the same engine. It's a Mercedes built engine. And it is, an F1 spec Mercedes engine, but it is not, Carlos Sainz and George Russell don't have the same engine in their car. I don't believe that for a second.
Well, I think the FIA would disagree, but I'm not going to tell you.
There's additional engineering and the software, right? I mean, these are just computers now. At this point, between the active aero systems that they have, the engine management, the battery management system. Well, maybe it is the engine, but they
could definitely do more computerized with the engine. But you hear it all the time, where a driver will be out, like one of either Mercedes or McLaren. One of these guys will be flying around the track, and they're complaining on the radio that the car is not giving them enough power, and they're like, guys, do something. And then they'll come over the radio, like one of the strategists will come over the radio and say, okay, switch to mode 3, strat 7, and you do something with the settings on the wheel, and now suddenly, bang, the car has more power.
Yeah, so I know that programming, that mapping of their ECU, that matters. Right. So, it's Mercedes is definitely holding that in reserve, and maybe that's that's probably well within the regulation. And I don't mean to accuse them of anything underhanded or cheating. Certainly not a lot of evidence of that. But you're exactly right. Like the Mercedes, the front running Mercedes are having more engine trouble than their, the people they supply, the teams they supply engines to.
With the exceptions of McLaren, who have seemed to have had more Mercedes reliability issues than anyone. Because I think both Oscar and Lando have run through all of the power units they were allocated for the entire season, and we're only at the midway point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, so is George Russell. I think Antonelli's on his last. So, you're looking at a lot. I think a lot of those, that's going to come into play in the second half of the season, right? And who that benefits, directly. I'm not sure where Ferrari stands with that, or what the duo, what benefit that gives them, if that allows them to fix the engine, their fourth engine that's already in the car. But who I see that like really benefiting is Lewis Hamilton. If Antonelli has to take a couple hits, lose 10 spots on the grid, and Hamilton doesn't, he's not that far back.
No.
From Antonelli. So, that
you have another Lewis Hamilton win and a Kimi Antonelli DNF, and they are right there.
Yeah. It's so that is going to happen. and it's anybody's guess on what that means. So I don't know. I don't know where Ferrari sits on their power unit consumption.
There's
But
websites where you can go and look up and see what every team has used their allocation. I'm not aware of them off the top of my head.
yeah, but again, like the way you manage a season, I think is really interesting. One of the most interesting things about F1 racing, aside from the actual driving of the car, is everything that goes into it in the rules, which is why it's kind of wild to me. How the popularity here in the States, right? Like Formula One isn't nearly as popular in America as I think in the rest of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of it. It's difficult to follow what the heck is going on every week. Like it's a lot of rules. It's a lot of
and that's why we're here, folks, to help keep you informed.
It's there's a lot to think about. It's as opposed to like NASCAR, where I'm sure there's strategy and but I don't recall right off the top of my head, but I don't believe NASCAR has any limit on the amount of engines or consumables you can use during a season.
With the engines, I'm not sure, but it's different because it's a spec series. Because like in IndyCar, NASCAR, they all run the same identical chassis. The teams are allowed, like in IndyCar, they're allowed to choose between either Chevrolet or Honda engines to use. And in NASCAR, obviously, you have Toyota, Ford, Chevy, Dodge. Those are all the engine suppliers, but the chassis on all of the cars are identical. That's theoretically, that's what they're supposed to be.
So, but it's much simpler to watch guys drive around an oval or a tri-oval than it is to follow. Like, I don't think you have to. You don't have to keep pace with NASCAR all week during the season to have an understanding of what's going to happen or what could possibly happen on Sundays.
What happened at Darlington last week? Well, they turned left for a while.
Yeah, that's it. One guy went faster than the other guys. One guy managed his tires better, or managed their fuel stops.
I don't mean to demean NASCAR. If NASCAR is your thing, more power.
No, not at all. But the real point I'm trying to make there is that it is a highly involved sport, and the team management, the driver management, and the consumables management plays such a big role.
Oh yeah.
And you can have the fastest car and the fastest driver, doesn't guarantee you a championship at all. Nope. So it's interesting to me, from that lens of it, the strategy and everything that goes into it is kind of fascinating. And there's but then again, it's super high dollar sport. Like there's a lot of money that goes into R&D. Those cars are worth a fortune.
Speaking of high dollar, that's a perfect segue into, I think, the final story that we're going to have for this episode. And this involves the Stroll family and Aston Martin, because, Lawrence Stroll just loves to throw that checkbook around. Everybody is a Formula One fan is aware of the struggles that Aston Martin has had this season. They brought in Adrian Newey from Red Bull. He's like a 16-time or maybe 18-time constructors champion with designing cars for teams like McLaren, Williams, and then Red Bull. So he's won multiple world titles. The guy's an aerodynamical genius. But the Aston Martin this year just has not been up to snuff. Also, Aston Martin, they had a Mercedes engine previously. This is the first year they have gone with Honda, and that engine has just been absolutely terrible. Honda is having a lot of trouble figuring out the hybrid engine. And so apparently they received an upgrade before the Hungaroring, and it was enough that during practice, Lance Stroll and Fernando were running pretty good. They were ahead of some of the other back markers. And then they both finished Hungary, but Fernando, I believe he finished P13, which is, I think, his highest finish of the entire season. However, they have more upgrades coming. The chassis received the upgrade for Hungaroring, but now Honda has an engine upgrade that is going to be coming for Zandvoort. And this is the one they've been waiting for, and it is reporting that it could be shaving up to an additional 0.6 a second per lap off of their pace.
Um, 0.6 of a second is dramatic, but when you are 24 seconds back, I'm not sure what the time split was, right? But between first and 13th.
Well, you break it down.
I think between first and eighth was, first and eighth was like over 14 seconds.
Right.
So, I mean, 0.6, it's a drastic improvement, right?
Well, when you break it down per lap over the course of an entire race distance, let's just say, we're throwing, round numbers out there. Let's say a race is 50 laps.
Yeah.
Then 0.6, per lap is going to be somewhere around 26, 27, maybe 28 seconds you're gaining over the course of an entire race distance.
Yeah, so that puts you in the top 5, I think. Yeah, I have to go back and look at the times, right? It's within the top 10.
They are definitely, if these reports are accurate, and they are actually going to be gaining that much time with this engine upgrade on top of the upgrades they've got with the chassis, which also reportedly the vibration issue that they had that made it incredibly uncomfortable for the drivers, that's been sorted. They've fixed that. So if the drivers are more comfortable and they're getting more performance out of the chassis and the engine, we could potentially see Aston going from the last car to finish to being like best of the rest, like, somewhere in like
racing bulls territory range. It'll be interesting. Interesting to see if that happens. I think Honda, like every team out there, has like great engineers that are building these engines. Like Honda makes a damn good engine. It hasn't, maybe they haven't translated that into F1 yet, but
I think the problem that happened when Honda moved, because if you don't know the story, originally in, I believe, 2022, Honda's president announced that they were going to be pulling out of Formula One. They weren't going to be supplying engines anymore, which forced Red Bull to make a decision, either find a new, because they were supplying engines for Red Bull since like 2018. And so that forced Red Bull to make the decision to either find a new engine supplier, which they couldn't get one from Ferrari, they couldn't get one from Mercedes, and they had already left Renault to go to Honda, so they really left them no option. So they just decided, you know what, we're going to start building our own engines. So they started up their own factory and partnered with Ford, and now we have Red Bull powertrains. So then apparently Honda's CEO that made that decision passed away. And then his replacement immediately reversed course and said, no, we're staying in Formula One. This gets us a ton of advertising for our engines. So, but Red Bull had already made the decision and started spending money on building their factory, so they couldn't re-sign with Red Bull. So that left them open for pick a new team.
Easy.
So that's when Aston Martin stepped in and said, we'll take Honda engines instead of Mercedes engines. The problem is, once that decision was made, a lot of the Honda engineers that were working with Red Bull on getting the most out of the Honda engines in the Red Bull car put in their notices at Honda and joined Red Bull's powertrain team. So the team that is building the engines for Aston Martin are not the same engineers that were building the Red Bull Honda engines.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Honda has, I think they have the R&D to field one of the best engines on the grid.
They definitely have a tremendous history in motorsports, period.
Yeah, 100%, right? Whether that's 2 wheels, 4 wheels, however you want to split it, legendary, a legendary capability there. What that means for those for Audi and
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. We'll see what it means. We'll see if they're able to translate those upgrades into a best of the rest performance. I'm not really that. You have to come a long way. You have to come a really long way to start to be a threat to to Red Bull with the Racing Bulls. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Definitely the ability there with Honda backing, but it'll be interesting to see how that translates out.
I'm kind of pulling. I mean, I've never been a big Aston Martin fan. I don't really like Lance Stroll or his billionaire daddy. I don't like the fact that Lance Stroll is in the sport because his dad keeps him with a job. Because if he was working for any other team, he'd have been let go and he'd be racing an IndyCar or something a long time ago. But I'm kind of pulling for him a little bit on this one because I hate seeing them struggle as much as they have this season. I'd like to, as much as I also really like Williams as a team, and I really don't want to see Aston do better than them, but I think they're on a better track right now than Williams is.
Well, really, it's a bit of a wild card. I'll tell you, honestly, I think I'm interested to see what Lance Stroll does with a more capable car, right? So, I mean, I understand, really a lot of the heat he takes for even being in F1, but to even pilot, you know what I mean? I think what's people don't understand, when they criticize him is that to even pilot that machine around the track is a pretty Herculean undertaking. And then to do it and even stay within a minute of Ferrari or, Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, you're pretty good. You're a pretty good driver. So is he F1 caliber though? We'll see. We'll see what happens with the upgrades.
All right. Well, I think that is all the time we have for this show. I think we've covered the majority of the topics going on. We are going to keep our ear to the ground and our eyes glued to social media and some of the other news outlets. And we'll try to bring you some of the news as it happens. As of right now, we're trying to do these updates maybe around midweek to just before the weekend every week. We're recording this video right now on a Wednesday, so it might not go live until sometime Thursday, possibly Friday. So I'm sure there'll be some new stuff to come out before then. Let us know in the comments what you thought about this show. Did we drag on a little long? Would you like to see a more shorter format, or was this okay? We'd love to hear from you, and we will... I don't know about Nate, but I can't speak for him, but I am obsessive about reading those comments, so I probably shouldn't be, but I try to read, and if I need to, answer as many as I possibly can. So don't be shy, let us know what you think, and we will constantly work towards making the show better if it's within our power. Nate, any final thoughts?
No, happy to do this. I think this is a little more fun. Hopefully, the audience enjoys it a little more because we're not talking about something that they can't see, which is kind of
in reference to the watch-alongs.
Yeah, pitfalls of doing the watch-alongs. It's great if you're watching the race with us, but I think, I like the format. Again, we're super interested in the feedback because we really kind of freestyled it.
Yeah.
So
for those of you watching this, we didn't have a script for this. I had a set number of articles that I wanted to go through, and I basically just said, all right, this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to read them, and then you give your opinion. I'll give any counterpoints, and then we'll move on. And we just bang, 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 bang. So this was all just freestyling off the top of our heads.
Yeah. So if we spent a little bit too much time pontificating, then certainly leave us a comment. Let us know. We'll try. We can try and be more concise. If there's anything you wanted us to dive a little bit deeper into, definitely comment on that too.
All right.
What I love in the comments also, what do you find interesting about the sport? What do you want to hear us discuss? That'd be really great.
All right. So with that, I'm Jason.
I'm Nate.
And we will see you probably in around a week from now. So take care and hit that like button and subscribe.